Welcome to Living Martial Arts with Master Ray Gale, aka the Dark Master. Living Martial Arts discuss and examines the everyday exercise, philosophy, and lifestyle of the martial arts enthusiast. The host talks about his own training, past and present, and he also interviews many martial artists to discover how they continue to live their own martial arts journey. Tune in for top tips on how to get the best out of your martial art. Or perhaps you're thinking of starting a martial art. This podcast offers you an easy way to dip your toe in. Sign up for the newsletter at livingmartialarts.com and get regular updates and training tips direct to your inbox. Follow the Dark Master on Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at Living Martial Arts.
Hello and welcome to the Living Martial Arts podcast with me once again, the Dark Master. I'm back with another great guest. I've been trying to get him on for a long time and our calendars haven't aligned, but it's great that we've eventually aligned. I've got Mr. Danny Dowling with us today and who's got a great story to tell. At least I think he has. I'm sure that you're going to enjoy it. So how are you doing, Danny?
Hi, yeah, I'm really good. Thank you for having me on. I've been a bit elusive, I think. It's been a bit difficult to get this going, but
I think it's the perhaps our lifestyles and work schedules have not been compatible. But it's great to have you on, and great to thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate it, and I'm sure my listeners will love some of the things you got to say. So, I mean, without further ado, really, it's my first question is to tell us a little bit about your story. You've been in martial arts. You were in martial arts at quite a young age, like a lot of us, but certainly a lot younger than I was when I started. Perhaps you can tell us about that, why you started, what happened, and we can ask some stuff from there. Go for it.
Yeah. So my brother's about 5 years older than me. He started Taekwondo when he was 8 years old. I think around about the time he was green belt, so was that about a year and a bit in, sort of roughly?
About 12 months, yeah.
Yeah, so around that time, I was like, oh, I'll give it a go, being 4 years old as you do. And 23 years later, I was still going. still going. So I started, obviously, like way back in the day, it was TAGB, before the inception of Puma. And I was obviously there until Puma started under Master Johnny Black. Sorry?
I was just saying the great and fantastic Johnny Black.
Yes, absolutely. The legend, as it were. Can't remember. I've got my black belt, my first Dan certificate up on the wall out there, but I can't remember the year. But you're supposed to remember those sort of things. I can't remember the year, but I was 9 years old at the time, so I got my first degree, and then and then it was I sort of like did a bit of competing. I did a little bit as a color belt. I stopped for a little bit. I stopped competing a bit as a black belt, but I was still training the whole time, doing a lot more teaching, that sort of stuff, and got back into the competing again. I think I was probably 12, 13 when I got back into the competing again with Puma, joined the Puma squad, all that sort of stuff, doing the squad training. We traveled around a bit, doing a lot of competitions in Ireland, things like that. And I suppose it's like fast forward, really. Got my third degree eventually. And I remember exactly. So it was I was with Ed Common Roberts.
Okay,
yeah. Coming back from a competition in Ireland, so we had, in order to save money, on the way there, we took like the last bus from Exeter up to whatever airport it was. I think it was Stansted, and that got to the airport at about 11:30, and our flight was about 7 a.m. So we were there for a very long time, sort of sat around. I've never experienced an all-nighter in an airport before, and I hope I don't have to again. But it was on the way back.
Done a few of those, but go on.
Yeah, I think everyone that's travelled and competed has probably done a few of those, unfortunately. But it was on the way back from that competition when the shop owner of a card shop where I play Pokemon cards at, he messaged me a link for something called Fighting Chance. So it's kind of a bit random, but what they do is every Olympic cycle, GB Taekwondo, they just do an open offer now for anyone to go and give it a go and join the GB squad. So I did. I applied, and there was a few of us from down our way that went up on the first go. Had a few fights, did some plyometric tests, that sort of stuff. I was invited back for the second one. I think a couple of us were. I don't remember. Yeah, a couple more fights and a couple more plyometric tests. And then I got invited back again for a boot camp. So that was a 5-day boot camp in Manchester. So they put us up in a hotel and we just did 5 days of training and this and that. And again, a couple more fights. And then I think it was around, they probably had around 600 applicants. They took 30, 40 of us. And I was one of those 40. So I was all of a sudden, what was that? It was October 2013. All of a sudden, I was a professional athlete with GB Taekwondo. Just out of nowhere, basically.
Which was awesome.
Yeah, well, it was. Sorry, go on.
No, you go for it.
Well, yeah, it was an upsy downy year, as I'm sure you very well know. Because it was not too long after I got the call to say I was in, unfortunately, that we lost Master Black. God rest his soul. Yeah. So yeah, it was a big load of changes all happening at once.
Yeah. Well, it's I'm just going to sort of rewind a little bit for a couple of things. It's really interesting because not many in my Taekwondo career as a Taekwondo teacher instructor, I've had one person get their black belt at 9, and the person was really good. In fact, it was the first when we had Puma rejoin the ITF. It was actually a young man called Michael Heel. He's a tattoo artist now, but he was the first one of my students to actually compete internationally for the ITF when we got back into the ITF, and he was really good. So that was quite some feat for you, because I think I don't want to upset anyone now, but I think it's a lot easier to get your black belt now at an earlier age than it was then.
Whoa!
I think when you did it, it was a bit more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't stepped foot in a grading room for a few years, but my ego wants to completely agree.
Yeah, well, I think it is. I think it is. There are far more concessions now for younger people, and I think when you got it, and I remember you quite well, because obviously I was there. I was a mature individual when you were of that age and you were getting your black belt, and there were some good youngsters, but I think to get your black belt at 9 at that time, you had to be very good, and you were very good. And I think going on from that, the fact that you went on and you competed, and you then eventually GB team and stuff like that really shows the kind of athlete and caliber that you were. And sort of talking about selection for the GB squad, there was a couple of things that I thought at the time, with yourself, and perhaps you can answer to that. I remember speaking to you, and you felt to me, or you said to me, that you felt you were more suited to a WTF style of fighting. And why did you say that? I mean, obviously, you got into the squad, so you must have thought, "Wow, this is for me." But why did you think that?
I think two of the main reasons is, one, I hate being punched in the face.
Yeah,
that's number one.
All do, to be honest.
And number two is, even though obviously what we did was ITF style, I grew up doing a lot of old fashioned, like I say, old school WTF drills with Master Black, because he'd sort of done a little bit of that, and he was always passing a lot of that on. So the very explosive leg stuff I quite liked.
Yeah.
So that sort of, that sort of interested me a lot more than the sort of like where we are now with ITF. And I suppose like they don't call it WTF anymore, it's just WT. Sort of took the F off. But one of the main differences that I would notice from watching an ITF fight now and a WT fight now is they initiate the same. It's front leg fencing.
Yes.
So yeah, so front leg fencing. Now the ITF one usually is a bit more aggressive with a single, whereas the ITF is a bit more WT is a bit more cagey and then explosive. But then the moment after that is very different, because quite often the ITF moment after that is to sandwich each other together and punch and find those punches, and then a breakaway like turning kick or something like that. That seems to be like sort of from some of the videos I've seen, that seems to be quite a common interaction. Whereas obviously with the Olympic style one, there is no punch into the face. It's a lot more, as soon as you create that close, it's either stay there or move away and create a new kicking opportunity. And as far as the ITF style of sparring or fighting goes, I was never a big fan of that split second where you're both sort of scrambling for face punches. And I never quite found a way around it. So the best way around it was to just bin it off.
Yeah. No, that's a fair comment. I think as well is that I must say, for me, ITF, the style of fighting ITF suited me, and I think why it suited me was because I was actually because I'm short and actually quite heavy for my height. When I was in the lightweight, I was in the lightweight division, and I was the shortest and the heaviest. And then went up to the welterweight division, I was the shortest and the heaviest. So actually, ITF style was quite good. But I mean, you got a really good build because you were tall and slim. You had that reach. Was that one of the reasons you felt actually, I could do quite well in this?
Yeah, and it was a weird time. We had a brief phone call last night, and we sort of touched on it a little bit. But the Olympic Taekwondo has been going through a bit of an identity crisis for a number of years. And when I joined around 2013, it was sort of like it was a year after obviously the 2012 Olympics, which was the first time that they did the electronic scoring system in the Olympics for Taekwondo. And that electronic scoring system changed the way that people fight in the Olympic Taekwondo style almost entirely for 99% of the competitors. It basically created that front leg fencing strategy, and that suits people who are tall. So if you're 6'2", 6'3", and you're able to make -63, wow, like you've got such a heavy advantage, because it's not about now I say it's not about applying power. Obviously you do have to apply a certain amount of power or else the system won't initiate, it won't register, but it's not a massive amount. So you can, as a tall light fighter, you can very easily just pick points away with your front leg, and then if you've got the flexibility, you can flick one up to the face. Headshots don't require any power, it's just a touch. So even the most gentle touch of the end of your toenail to the head guard is going to score you those points. So the shift that the electronic scoring system made to Taekwondo then, it's basically why they did the fighting chance as well, because they sort of GB Taekwondo saw that people who do ITF or do like wacko kickboxing, things like that, they have this amazing front leg flexibility and strength, which most WTF fighters didn't have.
Yeah.
So that's why they sort of thought, oh, okay, well, we need to try and bring people in that can do that. But yeah, I mean, that would be, I've forgotten what the question was now. I've just ranted for so long.
Yeah, no. Initially, it started off with your build and why beneficial, for yourself as an individual. Because I mean, those listening, how tall are you?
Oh, I'm 6'3".
I mean, that was I remember being in my division as a lightweight in ITF and fighting people 6'2" that was 63 kilograms. I mean, they were tall and really slim, and thinking, right, if that was perhaps a WTF scenario, I wouldn't have got away with it so much.
Yeah, you struggle. You struggle, yeah, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, because I noticed that even watching it, I think, right, wow, these two guys are this weight, but look how tall they are. Unbelievable. Even though I like sparring with taller people, but it was mainly because I could sort of get inside and use my hands a little bit, and I was sort of quick off my front hand, so that was quite good. I mean, just on the WT question, obviously a lot of changes, but from you mentioned being a professional athlete. What was it like for that time? What sort of things? What was the training camp like? Did they give you, now even in ITF? I try and give my students nutritional advice and whatever. I never received anything when I was competing at that level. I was just fighting, so I could eat and drink whatever I liked. I didn't actually get that much instruction on how to train or even how to rest, which was I realized was quite important. Probably too late.
Yeah, so same as you. Before I joined the academy, as they called it, there was not really a lot as far as nutrition advice, or I'd never done any weight training or anything like that. So I was 21 years old. I was very thin. Going back to the thin thing, so I was 6'3". I actually went into the camp at 73 kilograms.
Wow.
So I'm now about 93, 94 kilograms. So
Oh,
I
wow.
put on a lot of weight since then, but I was very, very thin. They did have a nutritionist.
Hmm.
I believe the one that they had at the time, she was, I think, like kind of part-time, and it was more of a passion thing. Like the amount, the funding wasn't quite there. I think now they've probably got very well qualified nutritionists. So we did have nutritionists. We had two strength coaches. One of them, he is now the head coach at the UFC center in America. So they had very good strength coaches. They probably still do have very good strength coaches. So we did have that. Now the nutrition side was actually very hands off. To be honest, I mean we were most of, other than the actual stepping in every day and training, it was like everything outside of that was pretty hands off. It was like the sports psychologist is there. You can book him if you want it. The nutritionist is there. I think we saw the nutritionist once a month, roughly, or you could see her more if you wanted to. So it was quite hands off. They did get us a day sort of with I think it was like a chef or something, sort of, because we all lived in an athlete house. So there was kind of there's like one road in Manchester where there's about 5 houses all with Taekwondo athletes in it. And so they just had a chef come in and be like, show us 2 or 3 recipes in our kitchen. But yeah, other than that, it was quite hands off.
Yeah.
Like average training day, I suppose I could say, right. So average Monday was for me. So there was 2 groups actually, and it was split. So we had, at the time, it was Paul Green and Darren Brown. Yeah. So they took one group, and then it was Stephen, Jesus Christ, I can't remember their names now.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, and sorry, and Harry Hyungguno, he has a Korean coach that they brought over. I think he's gone back to Korea now. But they took the other group now. So I was with Paul Green and Gareth, and we'd get into train at about 7:30, I think it was. We'd start first sesh, and that was about 2.5 hours, and then it would be a bit of a break, and I'd usually go and do some kind of like rehab stuff, or maybe it was I'd had a sports massage book, something like that, and then we'd go back in for another 2.5 hours sort of afternoon training, and then maybe another hour and a half sort of chill out, and then it'd be hour and a half of evening strength work, like sort of weights and that sort of stuff. So that was pretty much the everyday sort of 4 or 5 days a week, really. And then occasionally we would do like a Saturday morning cardio-y based sort of circuit stuff.
Excellent. Well, one thing I was going to say, and you mentioned about the training centre in Manchester, and it always surprised me because even when I was sort of competing in the 80s in the WT fighters, a few I knew very well at that time. One of my favorite people in the world, Mr. Ralph Minot, he was a WT that went to the Olympics, and he was quite close because he lived in Nottingham. But if you take someone like Aaron Cook, for example, I mean, he moved all the way up country to be closer to the.
Yeah.
I also thought was quite bizarre that they had. I can understand having one training center, but for athletes, I mean, if you're living in like yourself in Devon, that commute must have been quite difficult at the time and quite problematic, was it?
Yeah, well, it was the first. That's what we did from the day I moved up there to the first competition we did. We did like a sort of a domestic, no sort of Olympic points on it, that sort of thing. Just sort of, get your feet wet sort of thing. We did a competition there that was around London. I think that was about a 6-week period between moving up there and then going to that. And my mum and brother came up to watch that comp, and that 6 weeks was the longest I'd ever been without seeing my mum.
Yeah.
So it was, that side, that was an adjustment. And of course, like, I mean, I'm from Exeter and I now live in a smaller town just outside of Exeter. So moving to live in a major city like Manchester, that's a big shift. Moving so far away from my family and friends that I couldn't see them, essentially I couldn't see them. That was a big shift. A lot of the athletes actually do go home on the weekends.
Okay.
Somehow they can afford it. I could not. So quite often, actually, on the weekends, I was on my own, just in the house, rattling around. Make of that what you will. It was, I've got Netflix. I guess, you make the best of it, and so it was a big obviously,
Yeah. So I mean, at the obviously, sort of moving on from there, and you had obviously you spelling competition. Was there any time during that competing where you thought, well, actually, I'm gonna make it all the way, and I'm gonna hang in there? Because obviously, you had a period in there, and then you came out of that for whatever reason. Perhaps you can discuss that.
Yeah. So essentially the biggest reason I came out is because I wasn't winning medals.
Yeah.
That's it, right? That's, like we had a meeting. I sat down with the performance director, Gary, and my coach at the time, and he had it all printed out, and he's like, well, these are the competitions you've done, this is the places, I just simply was not winning enough medals. Yeah. which is fair enough. That's fine. That's what I'm there for, and I wasn't achieving that. They said in training, like, you're brilliant, you're working hard, you're pushing everyone else in there, etc. So that was nice, but unfortunately the bottom line is the bottom line, and I wasn't making that conversion. It obviously, from the outside, you can say, oh well, your job is to just train as Taekwondo every day, that must be amazing. It was, but at the same time, it was sort of like balancing act between heaven and hell, really.
Yeah.
Really. Because if you wake up and you've got DOMs, tough, you're training. If you've got a broken hand, which I did, I broke my hand in 2 places actually. I know you're recording audio, but you can see on the video, you can see that lump.
Oh yes, yeah.
So that I got kicked up and then also straight on the same day.
Yes, yeah.
So that hand, that was broken. I fractured my other wrist at the same time. So I actually spent a couple of weeks. I couldn't even open the dishwasher or anything at home. But I was still training. You got to keep training. I sprained my ankle. Well, it was sort of like the foot quite high up near the ankle, so it wasn't as bad as it could have been. So I sprained that. I rolled it, and then a couple of weeks later I rolled it again, and then another week later I rolled it again, and then I nearly didn't get to go to a comp. And then it's like the stress. It's like, if I don't go to the comp, are they going to want to kick me out? So that all sort of rolls in together, and it is. I mean, well, you're trying to be an Olympic athlete. It's mega, mega high pressure.
Yeah.
So it's like anything, and getting in to the academy is like, okay, I'm sort of top 1% in the UK of fighters. Great, but on the international scale, I struggled to make the top 300 fighters for my weight category, and there are potentially hundreds of thousands of -80 male fighters at any one given moment. So it's cool. It was cool, and it was nice to do something like that, something that I did enjoy every day. But at the same time, some days you just don't want to do it, and then and it's not the sort of thing that you can phone in either. You're sort of, it's 7 o'clock in the morning, you're tired, maybe you're stressed out, you haven't slept well, and then you've got your chest guard on, and then you're running drills, and you're getting kicked in the body multiple times, smashed up, and that was just week in, week out, really, and that's sort of the reality of it. So yeah, and to all everyone who's there now, and everyone who's done it, and everyone that's making something of it, and some people are self-funded as well. So like anyone doing that, just hats off to them, really, because it is cutthroat, it is tough.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, I'm glad you said that. I mean, any time you want to get to, the top level of your sport, whatever sport that is, there's a price. And people watch the TV, they don't see that price. They just see the sort of the end result, but they don't see the injuries. They don't see the stress. They don't see the demands that the coach is making on that individual. When they step on the podium, it's a real shame, because you almost want a TV camera to say, right, they've won this medal, but this is what they had to do to get. And as much as people say, oh, it was this and I got injured, people actually, until you're in it, you don't understand what it's like. I can't say that a comparison with yourself with that. But at times, people say, oh, you're really lucky. I said, well, you haven't seen me running 6 o'clock in the morning, or when I had a real job, I was running to work, skipping in my lunchtime, running home, training at night, as you say, trying to stave off the injuries and the soreness from from the session before. So people don't actually see that. So I think it's fair play to you for actually managing to get through that, and having to put yourself on the line like that. And I think the thing is as well is like an injury is really stressful, isn't it? Because when you're trying to fight your best and you're trying to keep your injury out of the way, then you're not going to be at your best. There's going to be something lacking. If you got a hurty ankle and you're going to kick someone, and every time you kick them it hurts.
Yeah, so it's a great example, because there was one when I'd injured my foot. I was due to go and fight in Kos in one of the Greek islands, and I was in training, and every time I went to kick, and it's my dominant leg, of course it is. Of course, it's the main leg I like to kick with that hurt. Every time I go for a kick, ow, it hurts, and it's bad. And I'm sat out in the hallway with one of the coaches, and I'm upset and I'm stressed about it, and I'm tearing up, and she's like, well, can you not just kick with your other foot? that was the answer, and that is the mindset. And I mean, I've seen it before. I've seen like Jade Jones, who she's won 2 Olympic golds, and she won 2 or 3, something like that. She's most successful British Taekwondo athlete ever, and it's like, yeah, bro, I don't know what she had, something similar, like a damaged ankle, so just strap it, be all right. Yeah. It's like, are you sure? Are you sure? It's that, those blinkers. Probably the best example of that and is Bianca Walkton. She while we were in Korea, she and a few others flew to China for a few days for another comp, and we were all watching it. It was being streamed online, and she went down a bit funny and I think she just tore away her ACL and her knee, and obviously we're all like devastated. And I think this was to fight. This was the semi-final, so whoever won that would get into the final. So she's there on the floor with with an ACL injury, and she's just shouting at the coaches, just strap it. It's like, what are you doing? You can't, literally can't stand on it. But that's the cutthroat mindset. I mean, that all that kind of stress that did get to me. Actually, it did get to me, and I ended up one day I did struggle with my mental health while I was there, and one day I just didn't have the willpower to get out of bed, and then I spent a bit of time doing therapy as well, like not with the sports psychologist, with a regular psychologist. So yeah, like it did all mount up on me. It did get to me a bit.
Yeah.
It was, and because it's when like day to day, like right now, I'm actually off work today and yesterday because I've got quite bad tendonitis in my Achilles, and it kind of got to the point. I got rehab not rehab. I'm seeing a physio in a few hours, but it sort of got to the point where I couldn't walk on Tuesday evening and Wednesday morning. If that had happened, if this scenario, if it was the same scenario and I was up there, like, yeah, okay, I've got a few days of work, it sucks, but it would be like I'm about to lose my whole career potentially.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I'm now really worried that if I miss this competition in a couple of weeks, are they now going to assess all of my whole record? Are they going to now just boot me out? There's no real notice period. You know, they don't really have time for that sort of stuff up there as well. It's not like, well, just, you know, be restful. We're gonna, you know, we're here for you. No. We ain't got time for that. Like, are you winning medals? How long is this going to take to heal? You know, that's it. And that was so I actually got quite bad tendonitis while I was up. I did get it in my groin. And if you've ever had tendonitis in your groin, basically every time you kick, it's just sharp shooting pain in that groin. It's awful. And we did 4 weeks of aggressive needling. So it was like between the groin and right down the inner thigh. It's kind of like acupuncture. But what they would do is they go in and then continuously jab it aggressively until the muscle spasmed.
all right,
So
yeah.
so I got that every week. I had that for about 4 or 5 weeks, and then that didn't work. So we tried electric shock treatment, which was a bit different. It was like a gun, sort of like a white gun looking thing with a metal bit on the end,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it would jab and send electrical pulses at the same time. So I was getting my groin zapped every week as well. So we did that for like 4 weeks, and that didn't work. So in the end, I actually had to have an operation, and we had a mesh put in.
Yeah.
But when the injury sort of really came up, like obviously I had niggles for a while, and it was niggling worse and worse, and it was like, right, okay, I need to get this seen. And it was like I sort of sat down to have the discussion. I was like, right, what are we doing with this? There's 2 options. You can have this operation, put the mesh in, you'll be out for maybe a few weeks, a month. Right.
Yeah.
The other option is we can just cut the tendon. You'll be out for 6 months, but you'll be way more flexible. It's like, well, if I'm out for 6 months, I'm now not really a fundable athlete. You know, I've not earned the right to have 6 months off yet. You know, if I'd won a gold in an Olympics and they were saying, well, we can have 6 months off, but we know that you're capable of winning gold in the Olympics, so we'll do it. That would have been fine. But as it stood, I had to make the decision to do the other operation. So it's all, even just like a small injury can become mentally so much more of a burden. And then when something is a mental burden, it starts to become a physical burden.
Yeah. No, that's a tough one, and it's you know, it's you know, people listening to this, I think will will go, wow, you know, certain things that they never thought of. Like I said, it's great when you're on that podium, but you know what's the stuff that's gone before. So what I mean, obviously, you know, from there, you know, you sort of came out of that. What happened after that from a martial arts perspective? I mean, I know a little bit about it, but go for it.
Yeah, I didn't really tell anyone I was out. I don't know. I just thought I wouldn't spoil the surprise. So I I sort of came home, and then I don't know. A few weeks later, I rocked up at the Puma squad training, and it's like, hi.
I'm back.
Yeah, so I did that. Came back, did some comps, did the Puma. Was it an international worlds? It was called one of the two.
Yeah.
Yeah, so did that. That was fun. We went to Italy as well. Did that. I don't know. I think once you've had a bit of a taste of that, the top end, it didn't quite feel the same.
Yeah.
No, and the sort of the passion and the will and the drive wasn't there. And if you haven't got that, well then, yeah, you're not going to win, are you? So just sort of ended up dropping off a bit from that. Yeah, I don't really actively do any martial arts anymore, to be honest.
No, I mean you can. I mean, I know you had a period of doing a bit of body combat, didn't you? You know, and I remember speaking. I think it was a while ago. I spoke to you about it. You were actually quite excited about it at one time. You were actually quite into it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I joined after I got back, I sort of realized it was like the first thing I wanted to do was just get a job so that I could get a gym membership because I enjoyed going to the gym. So I just had like a crappy job in a supermarket. It was awful, but it got me that gym membership. And I remember walking in one morning, and the guy behind the counter was like, "Oh, there's this class going on called Grit, and I think you'd quite like it." So all right, go on then, I'll give it a go. And it's one of the Les Mills classes, and it's basically it's their HIIT, it's their like high intention interval training. And I walked in and it kicked my ass, and it was great, and I did love it because I was still absolute sucker for physical punishment. So I kept going back, and then I tried body pump as well, the barbell base workout, and then I tried body attack, which is kind of like really high energy aerobics, and then because years ago, Master Black was also a pump and combat instructor, and I'd done body combat as a child. And I thought, I'll see what body combat's like as well. So I did some body combat, and I was like, do you know what? I think I'd like to teach this.
Yeah.
So I got my level 2 gym qualification, and I got qualified in Les Mills pump and combat. That was just over 6 years ago, actually. I got qualified. I got mega into it. Basically, my full-time job, I sort of transitioned because I was delivering pizzas as well for a while. So that was that sort of turn up at 12 and then leave at 8. That was quite a common shift. But the pizza place was not very well known or liked. So I very occasionally was doing an 8-hour shift and delivering one pizza. Yeah. They ended up going out of business eventually, but before they went out of business, I managed to complete my whole level 2 gym instructor course, basically at work. Just took my laptop in, did the coursework there, and then as I sort of started taking more classes and started letting them down a bit more, they were like, "Yeah, we're just going to let you go now." So I sort of just sort of transitioned really into just teaching classes. 2019 into 2020, I was teaching about 25 classes in a week. And that was, it was a lot. So that was sort of pump, combat, spin classes, HIIT classes, maybe a bit of circuits, all sorts of stuff, going around to a few different gyms in the area. I got qualified. Well, I reached the level of an elite instructor in pump and combat. So that was after you get qualified, you're a regular instructor. Then you would do 2 different advanced modules. So I did those, and then once you've done that, you're an advanced instructor. From there, you can send in videos of you teaching, and then they assess it, and you get feedback, and then you can get qualified as an elite instructor. So that was sort of like basically as far as you can go as a regular instructor. I was then invited to become what they called at the time a tribe coach, which basically meant any instructor locally could sort of come to me for help and advice. So I was sort of seen as a helpful person, if you like, and sort of seen as very, very competent. And that was to me like a pathway to become an international presenter. That's sort of what I wanted to do. I thought, well, I could teach classes. I would also like to teach other people how to become instructors, doing those weekend courses, and potentially travel around and do all that sort of stuff. And I was definitely on the path for that. I was sort of like traveling around to events, and I was doing what they call shadowing. So there was an event, I think it was the Bristol Les Mills event. So it was all a room of instructors. There's probably 200 instructors in the room doing body pump, and I was on the stage with the trainer presenter, but like not teaching it, just sort of shadowing it in the background. So that's sort of like again, that's as an instructor, that's something that you would want to achieve if you wanted to move through the ranks, through the levels. It all kind of, lockdown just kind of changed it really. Because teaching classes, for me, it was all, I was considered self-employed, so it was all I had to do all my own books and all that sort of stuff. But basically, it just meant that when there was no gyms open, there was no work.
Hmm.
So that's just, it all just gone. That sort of happened. And then to be honest, like, I try and pride myself on being as sort of authentic as I can with myself. And I just didn't feel like that Les Mills as a company was moving in a direction that I liked.
Hmm.
So I was quite vocal about that.
Yeah.
And the problem with that sort of industry is how cliquey it is. As soon as you're vocally saying something against the grain, you're out of favor. And as soon as I knew instantly I was going to be out of favor, but I knew I couldn't not do that. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I sort of like took a back seat. I still teach classes now, but I'm not trying to push to be in the limelight with that anymore. So yeah, I sort of like had that peak, sort of like dipped off the peak of. I'm now tapering my classes back, and I'm now an apprentice electrician.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
See, the trouble about speaking, it's a bit like politicians and having the whip taken away. You see,
Yeah.
You say the wrong thing, you go, uh-oh. Or even if you say the right thing, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Use the right thing. So it is tough. I get it. I do get it. And so how is it? That's quite a change, actually. Electric, that is a hell of a. See, my change was the other way around. I went from being an aircraft engineer to a martial arts. Well, actually, no. In between, I had a few other things. I actually sold life insurance as well. In between that, and a few other things. But I went from aircraft engineering to basically being a martial arts teacher, with a few bumps in between. People say, well, how did that happen? It seems bizarre. I said, well, it was I had that passion for physical exercise, and that's what I love, and that's what I love to this day. So, do you ever see yourself? I mean, you're obviously still doing a certain amount of physical training. I know that you're into your weight, so I see that on your social.
Yeah.
You like doing that? How's that going?
Yeah, I mean that's sort of like the bulk of what I enjoy doing physically now is essentially, it's a bit of a cliche really, but yeah, I just like lifting weights now. I dabbled a little bit with the Olympic lifting, doing clean and jerks and snatches, that sort of stuff. It's quite hard on the joints. I dabbled a bit in strongman. I actually entered a strongman competition as well as a beginner, so that was interesting, having to do sort of like 1 rep max on the deadlift and picking up Atlas stones and things like that. So I mean that was tough, because that was obviously, we talked about my build before. I'm not built for that. Funny enough, I'm not built for that, but did manage to pick up 115 kilogram Atlas stone. I've been able to pick up now.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it's really once you get the bug, and I mentioned this to a number of people. I might have said it on one of the podcasts, that when I finished competing, I still had this burn to physical, and I actually went into deadlifting. And bearing in mind, at the time when I actually finished competing, I was 73 kilos or something like that, and I used to go into the gym and do some big weights, deadlifting and benching, and some of the Olympic lifts like that. And I actually went up to 80 kilos really quickly. Put on a lot of size, and but I found that it didn't really mix that well with my martial arts, and because I was quite short and whatever, I felt very slow. I felt very slow, so I sort of stopped doing it. I mean, I do my resistance stuff now, but more for just to keep my muscle there, and just general fitness really, and it enabled me to teach. So it tends to suit me now, and I'm back down to the I don't know, probably about 72 kilos, I suppose. That type of size. But so what do you have any, apart from your new career as an electrician? Do you have any other physical goals that you want to complete at this time?
Yeah, I did the strongman competition. That was this year. I would like to do another one-off competition, because I'm never going to do another strongman again. But I'd like to do a bodybuilding competition as well.
Oh wow! Oh,
yeah, get on stage, get oily and greasy and tanned and have other men decide if I look good or not.
No, that's really interesting. Really interesting. I think it's funny with that sort of competition, because you don't hear as much about it now as you used to. When I was age of sort of 13 and whatever, and Arnie was still, his name was still quite big, and we were all buying muscle magazines and whatever. I'm sure they still exist, but I don't know. I don't know if you don't see it in the mainstream so much these days as you did then. I don't know if you.
Well, I think the thing is with the age we live in now is that if you're interested in something, then like the algorithm will find out you're interested in it and will absolutely shower you with it.
Yeah.
So I mean I've got a bit of an interest in it. I might watch a few bits and bobs on YouTube, and now I get bits, things come up on a Facebook news feed and stuff like that. I mean, say like the world of the world of rally, for example. Rally's great. I don't really watch it, so I never see it. But I'm sure if you're into rally, it's probably massive. I feel like that's just kind of like where we are now in the world, where things can be massive, but if you don't know about it, then you'll just completely avoid it. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you're probably right, because I mean, I like my guitars and motorbikes, and on my social media feed, that's what I get. Guitars and motorbikes. Here, look at this. Oh, this is, and it tempts me into buying a new guitar, and I've got to stop myself buying guitars, because that's one of my I've got to go to guitar therapy, I think. Because I just like the look at things. Oh yeah, I wonder what that plays like, and that's it. Once I got it in my hands, I have to have it. So,
yeah. Well, how many guitars do you have? You had like loads there.
I think all in all, probably about 15. There's a few that are not on display here that I've got tucked away in boxes, but I have promised myself that I would sell some and get rid of some, and maybe go on a nice holiday or something. Somewhere warm. But to be honest, it's not a bad vice. Music is a lovely vice. I do like my music, and I do like playing it. It's something that I actually started about the same time as I started martial arts, and unfortunately, my music suffered, and my martial arts, I did okay in that, and I'm coming back full circle now. Still enjoy my martial arts, but my main goal is to play better music and go and see live artists, which I've managed to do in the last couple of years. So I'll do a bit more of that. So no, it's that's great. Well, hey, we're coming towards the end of this, but what I always say to my guests is I'd love to chat to you again and catch up with how it's going. With the electrician and also the physical side of what you do as well. I just want to say thanks, really, because it's nice to chat to you. Obviously, I've known you for a long time as a young lad, and now as a man, and the stuff that you've gone through. I think it's quite an inspiring story, because there's a lot of people out there who aspire to be elite athletes, but actually there's a lot of work behind that. There's a lot behind the scenes. And it's not easy going. It's hard, and there will be setbacks. And I've said recently that in the class of martial artists, in the class that I joined, I was the best failure. I was the best failure, which meant in the end, actually, I did okay, because I was quite happy failing. I just came back and kept trying. Fair play to you as well. You've done some great things. You've done some stuff that actually most martial artists will never do. And become a professional martial artist and actually get paid to train and compete. Well done to you. So just finally, I don't know if you've got any words of wisdom to the youngsters out there. Go for it.
Ooh, I'm sure I do. But I'm on the spot now. Do you know what? What you're saying about being the best failure, or is that what you said? Best failure? Yeah. So interesting you say that, because do you know what, if you look at my grading card as a color belt, do you know what you'll find? L pass, triangle, L pass. L passes. I was an atrocious colour belt, absolutely atrocious. And you could say, well, you're very young, but it doesn't matter because when you're in the dojang, when you're doing what you do, it doesn't matter whether you're 5 years old or 55 years old or 155 years old. If your psychic position is wrong, it is wrong, and that's it. So, you know, if you're in that position, if you're young or even if you're not young and you're struggling along, if you enjoy it and if you genuinely really enjoy it, then there can't be any excuse to not do it. Like something we haven't talked about my time spent playing the Pokemon trading card game. So I actually competed in a world championships in the Pokemon trading card game. Yeah, I went to Hawaii in 2010. Yeah, so I took a break from that. When I moved to Manchester, I stopped doing that. But I got back in over lockdown. Of course, I had nothing better to do than sit at home and twiddle cards. So I've gotten back into that, and I don't know that I'll ever be the best player, but there's just something about it where I can't stop playing. And I suppose it's probably similar to how you feel about the music as well. If you're just into it, if there's something you're really into, then and you're really into it, then if every fiber in your body's telling you I want to do that, then that's what you got to do. You know, that's what you got to do. And that, I truly believe that is the key to finding real happiness in life.
Yeah. No. Thanks. Well, thanks for that. I totally 100% concur with that. That you've got to do the stuff that makes you happy, and sometimes it may be that it'll cost you a little bit. You know, like my passion for music and guitars, which has cost me a bit, but I don't see it as a cost. I see it as an investment, and I think if you look at it that way, and it makes you happy, and then I truly believe you're right there. But thanks. Just stay on the line before we as we finish. I just want another chat after this, but I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have, catching up with Danny Dowling. There's loads of stuff that he's mentioned that I never knew, which is great, because it's always the good thing about doing this is I find out people that I've known for a long time. I find out things that I've never known. So, thank you very much for that. I'd like to say thank you. Hopefully I'll be back very, very soon with another guest and another Living Martial Arts podcast. Thanks very much, Danny, and see you soon.